All right, good evening, everybody. It's your boy Akeem. Welcome to today's last vlog. Here to give you one more draft grade report on the NFC South division. Start things off with the Atlanta Falcons. They actually had the worst draft picks as far as the overall perspective, in my opinion. I'm actually going to give them a D for their efforts. Now, the one pick that I actually there was two picks. There's two picks that I do like. The first round selection in Canu Neal. He definitely is a good player coming out of Florida. He has a strong presence in the secondary. In the second round, they went with Deion Jones, the inside linebacker coming out of LSU. Now, I think they could have went with a better player. Now, he is coming off of a 100-plus tackle season. I will give him credit for that, but I just don't think that he was worthy of a second-round pick. In the third round, this was the second pick that I did like, and that is Austin Hooper, the tight end coming out of Stanford. And I think this is going to be a good addition because they are in need of a tight end. And then next three picks, they went with De'Vondre Campbell. He's an okay outside linebacker coming out of Minnesota. In the sixth round, they went with Wes Switzer, the guard coming out of San Jose State. That was a question mark in my opinion. And then lastly, with their final pick, they went with Devin Fuller, the wide receiver coming out of UCLA. They could have went with better players as far as position-wise. They could have went with a better wide receiver in the earlier rounds. They kind of messed things up as far as their order of picks. Now, I'm going to actually take that back. I gave him a D. I'm going to give him a C minus because I did like the Austin Hooper pick and then the Canu Neal. I think this is a pretty good addition, even though I think they could have addressed different areas in that first round selection. I just didn't like the order of what they went with their selections and the direction that they're trying to do. I don't really understand. That's why at first I'm going to give him a D, but I'm going to give him a C minus because I do like Austin Hooper as well as Canu Neal. Next up is the Carolina Panthers. They had a better draft than the Falcons. They actually had only 5 picks compared to 6 picks for the Falcons. Starting with their first round pick, they went with Vern Butler coming out of Louisiana Tech. Had a couple of 50-plus tackle seasons over the last 2 seasons, as well as 10-plus tackles for loss. Definitely he is a good interior lineman. Next up in the second round, they went with James Bradbury, the safety coming out of Sanford. He was a good teammate with Christy Tort of my San Francisco 49ers. I think he should have really been a third-round pick, but I understand. In the third round, they went with Daryl Worley out of West Virginia. He's actually coming off his best season with 12 pass breakups and 6 interceptions to go along with 49 tackles. Hopefully that he could be the good replacement for Josh Norman. Next up, they picked up another cornerback out of Oklahoma, Zach Sanchez. He's a respectable player. And with their final pick, they went with Bo Stanley out of Montana State, coming off of 37 receptions this past season, 9 touchdown receptions, 632 yards receiving this past year. I think he's a pretty decent player coming out of Montana State, but I think that they could have did just a little bit better, but I will give them a little bit more props than Atlanta. I'm going to give them a C for their efforts. Next, actually a C+. Next up, the New Orleans Saints. I think they did a great job with their draft picks. Now, this was I noticed that a lot of people went with the same player with their first round selection, including myself and Sheldon Rankins, the defensive tackle out of Louisville. Everybody was on point in that. Past 2 seasons, he had 10-plus tackles for loss and 50-plus tackles overall. Definitely a good player in that line of scrimmage. Actually, one of the top 3 defensive tackles entering this year's draft. Had a great career. Next up in the second round, they went with Michael Thomas, a gifted receiver coming out of the Ohio State to help address things with the receiving core. They need to build more depth. Marcus Colston is not the same player, so they're going to have to look for a new number 1 target. They still have Brandon Cooks, who is a good short route scat wide receiver. Next up in the second round, they went with Von Bell, a good center fielder coming out of Ohio State as well. He's a teammate of Michael Thomas, so this is going to work well between these two teams, these two players. And the fourth round, I actually like this selection in David Onyemata out of actually from the University of Manitoba out of Canada, and he had a great East-West Shrine game week. I think he had great practices. Definitely caught some attention, including myself as far as NFL scouting wise. I think he's a great player. And lastly, with their final pick in the 7th round, they went with Daniel Lasco, the running back coming out of California. Now I think he could could be the top sleeper at running back coming out of this year's draft. This kid was very effective when he was on the field. That shows that he has durability issues, but I think with him and Mark Ingram can possibly work well together in that backfield as a tandem. I think that Daniel Lasco has a lot left in his tank. Even like I said, he is coming in as a rookie, but I think that people are sleeping on him. I think he's a great athlete, and I have to call out my man Justin Gotze. I have to give you a lot of props on that one. Respect. He actually called that one out himself, and I actually started looking more and more tapes. He is very effective when he is on the field. Now, overall for the Saints, I'm going to give them a B+. They did a great job with their picks. Next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the last team we need to talk about. They actually had a great draft as well. Starting with their first 3 picks, in my opinion, they did a good job. They had a steal with Vernon Hargreaves from Florida. He was an All-American, All-SEC selection, and I think he should have been taken by the New York Giants at pick number 10, but they decided to go with Eli Apple out of Ohio State, which gave Hargreaves an opportunity to play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In the second round, they had 2 picks. First, Noah Spence out of Eastern Kentucky. He's a guy I mentioned. He's from Ohio State. Then he had to transfer due to being dismissed, I believe, but he actually had a great season this past year for Eastern Kentucky, one of the top pass rushers that everybody's looking at. I think he was worthy of a second-round pick, in some people's eyes, a first-round pick. I think I had him going to the Chiefs at pick number 28 before the trade. And in the second round, they picked up a kicker from Florida State in Roberto Aguayo. Now, this is a question mark here, but he's actually the most accurate kicker in college in NCAA history. He averaged 96. He was a 96% kicker. The Buccaneers is looking at him just to get at least the 3 points. He could be the next Martin Gramatica, a Pro Bowler, and I wish the best for him. I don't think he's worthy of a second-round pick, but I understand what the Bucs is doing there. Next up, Ryan Smith. He's a decent player from North Carolina Central. He's actually a good all-around player. He can help out in run support, give you some pass break breakups and some interceptions. Next up in the 5th round, they picked up Khalib Ben-Notch, offensive tackle out of UCLA. I think this was a decent selection. Now, the next pick I want to talk about in Devontae Bond out of Oklahoma. This was, in my opinion, the worst pick that they had. I'm not really feeling this player. I think this was a wasted choice. In the 6th round, they picked up Dan Vital, the fullback slash tight end slash H-back for Northwestern. He's definitely a good athlete. Buccaneers is definitely going to look for ways to utilize him on the offensive unit. Now, overall for the Bucs, I'm going to actually give them a B. I think they did a good job. Actually, a B plus like the Saints. I think they did a good job as far as for the first 3 picks. The only pick I did not like is the Devontae Bond pick out of Oklahoma, but I think they did a good job, so I'm going to give them B plus just like the Saints. I like their draft picks. Did a great job. Now, when we wrap things up finally with all my this year's draft, the next time I'm really going to start catching you guys is during college football season, where we edge over to the month of July, in which I will start giving you my previews for each conference headed to this year's college football year. And let's not forget fantasy football. I'm going to give you all my top rankings for each position headed towards the 2016 fantasy season. I'll see you guys in a couple of months. Thank you for watching this blog. I'm your man, Akeem McCall. Be easy.